woman can't accomplish. So we're really witnessing her story today, and it's about darn time.
Yes, it is. And I want to just invite the audience, if you have any questions or comments for Star Jones, please go ahead and submit those now in whatever forum that you're in. I want to ask you this question. I know that you have been engaged on just a policy thinking front about how to populate the bench. And I appreciate you, Star, going into why it's been so meaningful that this administration has put Black women all over the courts all around the country. Can you put a fine point on why the Supreme Court nomination of Judge Brown Jackson is so meaningful in this moment in time as a Black woman, and how her voice might lift us in a way that this country needs right now?
You know, Aisha, I think it's clear by all measurable standards that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has the level of compassion, sense of justice, then matched with that brilliant legal mind that's going to bolster the integrity of the Supreme Court by really bringing about a balance that ensures that the court is more representative of Americans. You know, as we think about just how smart and capable and wonderful she is, we're going to see this week the Senate and the country will finally see just how qualified Judge Jackson is for the Supreme Court. Just in this hearing, the breadth and depth of Judge Jackson's legal career, working literally on all levels of the justice system, will be on display. I want people who are watching this to realize that there are literally thousands, tens of thousands of qualified, ready, capable African American women lawyers who really stand at the cusp of being able to do whatever it is we want to be able to do. Because you're going to hear and see that this judge, you'll hear about her nearly 10 years as a judge already. Check that box. Where she wrote more than 570 opinions. Check that box. Her
Hmm.
record demonstrates
Hmm.
that she is a fair and impartial judge that follows the facts and the law. So you're going to see brilliance on display. And for the first time, the nation and the world, in fact, because the world is following this, are really going to see that there is excellence at all levels of the African American community. And again, I say it's about darn time.
Yeah, yeah, that it is. I think we have one question from the audience that I want to go ahead and get in here. Um, we have what is so interesting to me about this. You talk about the qualifications. And of
Hmm.
course, to me, it's like, of course, she's qualified to be here.
Of course, she's
President Obama
qualified.
vetted her. She's already been confirmed by the Senate, three times
Four
at this
times.
point,
No,
for
fourth
four
time.
times,
This will
excuse
be
me,
her
for
fourth
various
time. This
roles.
will be her fourth
It's
time, Aisha.
amazing.
The fourth time, okay, that she is before the Senate Judiciary Committee. I don't know very many people who sits before the Senate Judiciary Committee already three times and be passed, and now this is a fourth time. She has been confirmed three
Right.
times with bipartisan support, okay, just having been confirmed last year to the Court of Appeals. So qualifications crack me up. Okay, this is
Yeah.
credentials. She's already
Right.
walking in the door. She's qualified. That's what we want to say. Okay.
Right. We already know that, because if this, going back to some other justices, they were not critiqued so hard on their qualifications, even though she's probably more qualified than most of them. I want to bring in Abba and invite you to offer up the questions that are coming from the audience. Do you have any?
Yeah, so we have Teresa Perry from Kansas City. Teresa, go ahead with your comment or reflection.
I, I just want to say, you all have said it all. I just thank God for this moment. I thank God for all of y'all brains, all of your smart, and all of your beauty. Thank you. Let this go support. Just let this go forth, and I support you all wholeheartedly as a Black activist in Kansas City, Missouri. Love y'all.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have others?
Yeah, so we have Sean Jones from Jacksonville, North Carolina. Sean, go ahead with your comment or reflection. Sean, are you there?
Hello? Yes,
Yeah,
can
go
you hear
ahead
me?
with your comment. Yep, we can hear you.
Yes. Let me first give honors to all the Black women that has stepped up in history and throughout history, and that's continued to do the same thing as they have done in the past, and that was step up to the plate. I give honors to all women, all black women. And also, my question was in regards to systemic racism when it comes to the employment, when it comes to whistleblowing at the workplace and being retaliated against. What I understand, my question is like, what difference is this going to make in that arena when it comes to systemic racism into the workplace, where there's we know that black people has been last to hire, first to fire under that notion, because there's been a lot of as well as myself being a victim of retaliation in the workplace. But there's no one that would deal with this issue. No, I've been to the NAACP about certain situations at the workplace, brought it to their attention, but there's no one that's really stepping up.
Yeah. Thank you for that question.
That's following up on this. On the issue.
That's a great question, and I'm curious, Star, would you want to jump in as so many years as an attorney to just kind of speak to how employment law may play out here?
Well, to be very honest with you, we're talking about a justice on the Supreme Court, and so this issue won't reach her desk or the desk of the Supreme Court unless a case is brought in its proper form, as you can expect. As it relates to any part of the law, see what our caller brother is really bringing up are issues that rarely reach the court system at a time where the laws can be challenged and or interpreted. So what we're looking at is, first of all, the legislature is the place where laws are actually changed or laws are actually made. You know that. So once you hit a particular law that impacts on an issue, the next step is to make sure that law passes judicial muster, meaning is legal across the board, especially if we're looking at federal law. And then at that time, somebody would need to, and might be that brother caller who just called in, challenge whether or not the law is being applied fairly. Once that challenge is, okay, now we're in the middle, we're in the party, as I like to call it. Now you are in the position to work your way through our court system. And a lot of people find that arduous, working our way through the court system. But the reason I like to bring it up is because we would not have gotten rid of separate but equal. We would not have gotten voting rights. We would not have gotten the ability for women to make healthcare choices about their bodies. None of that would have happened if laws had not been written, laws had not been challenged. Those challenges reached the federal court, and those federal court decisions work their way up to the Supreme Court. That's what the process is. Again, may sound arduous, but without having someone with lived life experience at every single level of that arduous process, we don't stand a chance. This is the first time that you will see a Black woman who is in that process at the top of that process. That voice will be the voice that will give access to the court system that may not have had access in the past, or at least did not have their issues entertained in a manner in which was reflective of how it impacts on a greater society. So I hope that explains how the process will work.
Star Jones, thank you so much for your reflections, for your brilliant education here. We will continue to follow you and appreciate you using your platform to always spread truth and certainly justice and power. Thank you so much for being with us. I want to acknowledge that Judge Brown Jackson just sat down there in the Senate chamber. We're kind of watching that feed come on through. And as we continue to monitor what's happening on the Hill, we'll bring in other voices to share with us as well. I think I want to check in and see, do we still have Donna Brazil on the line, who is holding with us as well to jump in?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes,
Hello,
I want to invite in. Yep. Can you hear us, Donna? Can you hear us there? I want to invite in.
Yes. Yes,
Oh,
I'm
awesome. So for those of you, she needs no introduction, but we have, certainly one of our longtime political strategists in the Democratic Party who ran a presidential campaign, ran the Democratic National Committee, has seen it all from the inside out. I want to invite Donna Brazil to jump in here and share your thoughts and reflections on the politics of the day here with this historic appointment or nomination, I should say.
Well, thank you so much, Aisha, and thanks to NAACP for inviting me. Early this morning, I was on the steps of the Supreme Court along with over 1,000 Black women, men, law students from across the country, and so many prominent individuals from all across the women's movement who showed up in support to confirm Judge Jackson. The Black Women Collective, Leadership Collective, along with Sister Rising, Melanie Campbell from the National Black Women's Organization, Janice Mathis, everyone was there. And I just also want to report that the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Dick Durbin, opened up the event, and he showed up as well. This is a historic day because election has consequences. And when then candidate Joe Biden promised to put a Black woman on the Supreme Court back in 2020, we heard him and we began to organize, not just to put a woman on his formal ticket, which turned out to be Kamala Harris, but a Black woman on the Supreme Court. We know that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is extremely qualified, and there's no doubt in our minds that she will be confirmed. She has presented herself before the United States Senate on 3 occasions, and she has won the confirmation in a bipartisan fashion on 3 different occasions. So we suspect that over the next 3 days, we will hear from members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. She's met with all of them, along with 44 of the senators. They have examined her record, and I believe at the end of this process, she will be confirmed. But of course, we're urging everyone to contact their United States senator and make sure that they request that their voices be heard and that we confirm Judge Jackson.
Donna, could you speak to you mentioned, and we keep mentioning that she has actually been confirmed multiple times already, but we know that because of politics, we've already seen it start to play out in the last week or two, that some of the Republican members might now have a different tune that they're singing. So what would you say to us and advise us about how to help penetrate through the politics that get ugly, despite the fact that we know that, she is the right person for this job and they knew it too, but might change their tune because it's political?
Well, some people forget that she was appointed to serve on the U.S. Sentencing Commission. That required Senate confirmation. It was unanimous. Some people forget that she was appointed to serve on the United States Federal Court for the District of Columbia by President Obama, and it was unanimous. Some people forget that last summer she was confirmed to serve on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, and she had bipartisan support. So this is the 4th opportunity. We know that there are going to be senators who try to raise what I like to often refer to as sound bites, but Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has already rebuked his Republican colleagues for complaining that it was inappropriate for President Biden to announce that he was going to put a Black woman on the Supreme Court. McConnell noted that President Reagan promised to put a woman on the Supreme Court, and Sandra Day O'Connor was chosen. President Trump promised to put a woman on the court when Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and he said he would also put a woman. And so McConnell has requested that this process be fair and that she be treated with respect. And while there may be differences of opinion on certain issues, there's no question that Judge Jackson is very qualified to serve on the Supreme Court.
Indeed. Alba, I want to come back to you with questions or comments from our audience. Does anyone want to weigh in?
Yeah, we have Sandra from Elkins Park, Pennsylvania. Sandra, go ahead with your comment.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm just so overjoyed to watch this right here before my eyes in my living room. I'm sitting next to the Norman Rockwell painting of Ruby Bridges, just sitting just right next to it. It's such a wonderful experience to look at this and to also be listening to ladies here on the phone. It's really just so exciting. I just would like to express this is such long overdue happening that's going on. It's long overdue. And it's just still somewhat bittersweet, and I can feel it in my gut that the struggle is just still there. Just really hearing everyone talk about how this wonderful qualified woman, okay, is facing so much scrutiny before she can even get there. We just really have to stand strong behind her, and I know we will. We will. And, I can say I can echo everything everyone is saying, and thank you for the additional knowledge that we're sharing amongst each other. We need to continue this conversation because it's just something that is long overdue. And I'm thinking about my son right now, who's currently United States Marine Corps, and he's looking at the person that he has to every day salute to, and that is our great President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. And now we have this wonderful Ketanji Brown that's right now standing before us, ready to take the oath. And I have to say, thank you.
Isn't it awesome to have something to celebrate? I mean, we have been in such a defensive posture for the last several years and have a lot of fights to continue to have, for sure. But to be in a celebratory mode, I think, is the most exciting part of today. Abba, do you have another one?
We do. So keep it brief. I think we're going to go to Judge Jackson's remarks soon. So we have Will Ellis from Lincoln, Texas. Will, go ahead with your comment.
Thank you so much. I am the Reverend Willie Ellis. I am pastor of New Hope Baptist Church here in the Giddings, Texas area. And the first thing I want to do is just thank all of you distinguished ladies for having this panel this morning to talk about this historic moment that we're now in. And the thing that I want to mention is the thing that I've been noticing for the last several years, how the Lord is raising up and rewarding Black women for the price that they have paid in rearing up their families, broken families. And I see now that in the South, let's just take the South for example, where we had white persecutors are now being replaced by Black female prosecutors who are bringing justice where justice was not known in years past. And so it's just so amazing and rewarding on this day to watch the first day of spring when Black women spring forward with power that God has given unto them. And so I just want to say that it will be negligent if we did not take this moment just to thank God for all that he has done for his people. And all we need to do is just acknowledge him, and you'll see that this trend that is now taking place, it will spread throughout the U.S. and throughout the world, really, where Black women in other places.
Great. Thank you for your comment.
All right, so are we going to head now to the live feed, or do we want to come back to Donna and Star? I think we're seeing right. Okay, great.
As of now, Chairman Durbin is speaking. I believe that Judge Jackson will speak after all of the senators make their opening statements, so that's likely to be in the 1 to 2 p.m. hour. But Senator Durbin now is opening up the hearing.
Yep. So what we can expect for today is that there are about 22 members on the Judiciary Committee from both sides, and that each one of them is going to get to make an opening remark. And then following that, we're going to hear from Judge Brown Jackson making her own opening remarks. So today, what we're going to see is everyone just kind of, waxing poetic and I think setting the stage for the questioning that will come in the days to follow. So what will happen today, we'll hear from everyone else. What will though, and I want to, come back to you with Donna. interesting to me is to see how there is an attempt to poke holes in her record, which has been so vetted up to this point, given that she is probably one of the most vetted candidates out there. Now you do see Senator Josh Hawley and some other Republicans who are going to try to make her seem perhaps softer on crime or just try to find any way to attack her. I'm curious what your thoughts are about this vetting process and what's in folks' background and how she should face it all. Nope, Donna, do we still have you? Did we lose you? Do we still have Star with us?
No, you still have me. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yep.
You still have
Jump
me
in.
with you. Thank you. And Bishop Leah Daughtry will be coming in momentarily. I didn't hear the question because I was still getting back in the room.
I'm just curious how, and to both of you, feel free to jump in on this. I'm just curious how you think that she should handle the fact that people are going to try to poke holes in her record, despite the fact that she is fully vetted, that, there have been 3 occasions now where the Senate has confirmed her, has believed in her ability to do the job. Now you've got Republicans like Senator Josh Hawley who are going to try to contort her record. Who are going to try to make her out to be something that she isn't. And I'm wondering, what is your thought about how she should be poised and to deal with that and respond and react?
Well, I don't think that they have any grounds to question her qualifications because half of them would be thrown off the Supreme Court if we went by qualifications. I mean, not only did she have over 9 years of federal legal service to the courts, as well as the Sentencing Commission. They're going to try to poke holes into her judicial philosophy. We saw, this is standard question, and Star is the lawyer in the family. Let me stop pretending to be one. But they're going to try to poke holes to see if she's soft on crime, whether or not she would support legal precedent on a number of issues from voting rights to abortion rights, et cetera. They're going to try to poke holes in terms of her support for gun rights and not gun rights. Look, Judge Jackson has written over 600 opinions. Less than 2% have been overturned. So we know that she will be prepared for any and all questions that will come her way. This is a superb judge and a superb nominee. Not just because of her background, her legal experience, but the fact is that in the history of the United States Supreme Court, we have never had a public defender, someone who is responsible for defending the poor, those without legal representation. And so, again, President Biden, Vice President Harris made a very smart and wise decision in selecting her, and I do believe she will be confirmed.
Awesome. So where we are now with our time, I want to see, we've got to 11:18. We can turn to the audience and offer up another opportunity for reflection from those who are watching. I know it's an exciting day for us all to see this play out. Who do we have, Abba?
Oakville, Pennsylvania.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead with your brief reflection.
Yes. So I would like to know what can we do specifically the NAACP and we individually to encourage our young girls to know that they too could be nominated for a Supreme Court justice. It seems to me that we should do and could be doing more for our little black boys, black girls, specifically black boys too, but today it's all about girls, girl power, to encourage them and let them know that they can reach for the sun, the sky, the stars, and the moon. So I'd like to know what the NAACP is doing. And I'd like to also comment on a comment that was made, several comments earlier about whistleblower problems. Not to go on and on and on, but I am a proud whistleblower, worked for 34 years in the federal government and was wrongfully terminated under a new law that Trump signed in 2018, but have no regrets about being removed from my job of about $90,000 and will eventually be reinstated. But just to say that I would ask that something be done or collaborated with the NAACP to maybe focus and to help units look into whistleblowers and other types of similar wrongdoings. Thank you.
Mm. Now, do we still have Star? Did we lose her? I know she had some other obligations this morning. Donna, go ahead and jump in there.
Look, I do believe that this is a moment for the country, not just for Black women and Black men and Black girls and boys, but a moment for America to see this amazing nominee who will stand before the Senate Judiciary Committee and the entire United States Senate. Why? Because it says that all of us, we are all uniquely qualified to reach the highest heights of our dreams and imagination, and by working hard, studying hard. But yes, this is also a very special moment. I can't help but think about my niece, Brianna, who just graduated from law school. She is the first female in my family to ever go to law school and get her law degree. Now, that matters that Brianna can now see herself one day as serving on a federal court or serving as the next justice of the Supreme Court. So, yes, this has opened up a door. This has opened up opportunities. And I hope we all prepare our children to serve, whether it's at the Supreme Court, at the federal courts, at the local courts, at the county commission. This is about making sure that we have equal representation and to ensure that no American, especially Black Americans who have been denied so long, no American will ever be denied again this opportunity. Remember, it was 1966 when the first Black woman was able to serve on a federal court. That was Constance Baker Motley from the great state of New York, the former borough president of Manhattan, the former state senator who became the first Black woman to serve on the federal judiciary. Thurgood Marshall, a year later, was appointed to serve as the first African American ever to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States of America. This court has been around for 233 years, yet in that period of time, today and starting this week, we may, in fact, be able to see our third Black American ever in the history of this country to serve on the Supreme Court. This is a historic day. This is a historic moment. And I hope not only do we celebrate, but redouble our efforts so that Black women, Black men, and every child in America will be able one day to reach his or her highest potential.
It is so important that we are here having this conversation for sure in celebration. And Donna, as you said, you shared with us that you just left a rally before the hearing started up on the Hill that is well attended. You have, the Panhandle orgs are out there. Lots of folks are out there supporting her. And I want to just remind us all how important the vocal and visible advocacy is around this Supreme Court nominee. If you remember, Trump's nominees, there was a lot of resistance and a lot of action against them. They still moved through anyway. But the fact that the public had on their mind who these people were was really important because we're watching them differently than we may have otherwise if we would have just let them float through without any critique. I think it's really important that we all show up and stand up and act out on her behalf so that the general public understands the consequences of not having her on the bench, and certainly the history that could be made today. And having the perspective of a Black woman and that lived experience is so critical at a time when we completely lack that. We've never had a Black woman ever in this kind of role. So I want to remind us all that the acting up and acting out in joy is meaningful and purposeful. And I'm curious, Donna, do you have a look ahead for what we might expect this week with other just kind of organized events and activity happening up on Capitol Hill in support of the nominee?
Well, we have each day, and by the way, I'm in a room now with Leah Daughtry, Glenda Carr from Higher Heights, Holly Holiday from Sister Lead, Sister Vote. And what I'm hoping to do right now is to make sure that we can get their voices on. Holly, who has the agenda for the rest of the week handy? Because we have, can you get on the phone? And okay,
Yeah,
we're going to
feel
let
free
you
to
know
add them up,
all of the
add them in.
activities taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Leah is trying to get connected. Everyone has just came from the rally, so we have Twitter Spaces, we have watch parties all across America today. From Florida, where there are 3 watch parties, from Judge Jackson's hometown of Miami, of course, Fort Lauderdale. We also have one in Pensacola. We have watch parties in Detroit. It's just Black women and Black folks are excited. This is a joyful moment, and we want to celebrate it. We also have a Twitter space. We have Facebook Live. There's all kinds of activities. And Glenda, can you share with the Glenda Carr is the president of Higher Heights, and she's going to share with you all some unique events that are taking place.
No problem.
Hey,
Good
Glenda.
morning.
Glenda,
Glenda
welcome.
from Higher Heights. How are you?
Hi.
Good. Donna
Give
just
us a
passed me
dish.
over.
This is
Good.
this
So
is
yeah,
Aisha Mills. I'm moderating this conversation with the NAACP. We are celebrating right now the nomination of Judge Brown Jackson here. And so I put you on the spot because I am interested in how we can continue to be engaged throughout the week in all of the activity to support her.
Yeah, great. Yes. So, we are partnering with the Black Women's Leadership Collective, which is a group of Black women-led organizations that came together for #Confirm Judge Jackson. That's She Will Rise, Black Women's Roundtable, D for Women in Action, Delta Sigma Theta, Sister Lead, Sister Vote, Higher Heights for America, Win with Black Women, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Power Rising, the Links Incorporate, and National Coalition of Negro Women. And so there are going to be activities all week. We just came off of the steps of the Supreme Court, as Donna mentioned. We are now at the Hyatt hosting a DC watch party. But in addition, Holiday is going to jump on and talk about, we are hosting watch parties from across the country. People are in their living rooms and churches and community centers, just gathering. We have to say this is, we're living in really tough political and economic times, but we are centering joy and providing ways for us to take action. And so if you go to blackwomen'sleadershipcollective.org, you'll see all the activities. We will be hosting virtual watch parties throughout the week on a platform that Higher Heights built called the Black Women Lead House. And so there's currently 500 Black women and our allies on that platform right now. And every day you will hear, there's a spin room. So I hope, Aisha, you get some time to come over to the spin room. And so not only will you be able to watch the watch party, but you'll have Black women thought leaders on all week giving commentary. So I hope you guys will join and use the #ConfirmJudgeJackson.
Thank you, Glenda Carr of Higher Heights. You said you're going to have Holly jump in. I think we're passing the mic.
She's the one organizing all of the hosting some events in the evening.
All right, so I just, while we wait for Holly Holiday to jump on to talk about the events they're hosting, I got to say, the fact that we can just gather right now, I mean, we are also now barely coming out of the cover of COVID darkness, and the fact that we can get together and gather in our homes with our friends at formalized events in celebration is also exciting to me right now, because I'm all for a good party, and certainly a party with a purpose. Holly, do we have you on the line?
You do. This is Holly Holiday. How are you?
Holly Holiday, welcome. Welcome to the NAACP watch party for the nomination of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. We are talking about how we can continue to be engaged throughout this week in support of her and just in fellowship with each other. And it sounds like you had some events to share with us. What you got planning?
Absolutely. Well, today and every day. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Today and every day this week, the Black Women's Leadership Collaborative, in conjunction with Win with Black Women and Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, will be holding a daily recap at 6:30 every day on Twitter. You can find us by going to either following the hashtag confirm Judge Jackson, or you can go to bit.ly SCOTUS Hearing Day 1 or bit.ly SCOTUS Hearing Day 2. I think you get the message, and we'll have one each and every day at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, we'll also have our traditional politics weekly room at 8 p.m. on Clubhouse. And, of course, we've got watch parties going every day of the week this week in different parts of the country.
Awesome. Fabulous. I love that there are so many ways for us all to plug in. Y'all know that when we have exciting things happening in politics and current affairs, the major networks don't always cover around the clock coverage and analysis around the things that we care about. So I want to put a plug in for after we're finished here with the NAACP's live feed, you can continue to watch coverage of Ketanji Brown Jackson's hearings on Black News Channel, BNC, where all week we will be covering it all day, every day. So if you miss anything, you can feel free to tune in there. We'll be going live with it. And then I'll also be covering at 7 p.m. every evening as well. I want to come back to audience questions and reflections. There's so much enthusiasm buzzing there. Abba, do we have another comment or question from the audience?
Yeah, so folks, if you want to get into the question or comment queue, please dial *3. If you can also your TVs, if you have a TV in the background. Right now we have Glenda Anderson from Lansing, Michigan. Glenda, go ahead with your brief reflection.
Hi, good morning. I just wanted to get on and good morning. How are you doing? I am so excited. This is history making to me, to be a 70-year-old Black woman and to see Judge Ketanji Jackson nominated today. I don't have any daughters, but I do have sons, and I am so proud of what's going on today. And I just want to say I want to thank our president and our vice president for nominating Ms. Brown on this day. Judge Jackson. And I just want to say also, I just hope that everybody is listening. I have it on my television. I'm recording it so I can have it to show to my nieces and my cousins, later on, so that they can see that a Black woman can be a judge for the Supreme Court, the first Black woman. So I just wanted to get on here and say congratulations, and I'm praying that she's nominated. Thank you.
The possibility models. I mean, we can never get enough of our possibility models. And speaking of which, I want to bring in the Reverend Leah Daltrey, who is also here with us. I know you heard that she has been at the rally up on the Hill and is in the thick of things. Welcome, Reverend Daltrey. It's great to see your face. I know that you are just as animated as we are today. Can you give us a sense of how your morning has gone and what you've been up to and what you're hearing?
Hey, Sister Aisha and all of the family tuning in today. I'm so happy to be with you. It is a glorious, glorious day. We gathered this morning on the Hill, on the steps of the Supreme Court, to talk about Judge Jackson's nomination. The hearings are today. And so I'm just getting back from the rally, so I'm not I'm on my phone. So, bear with me. But it was just glorious. Just the idea that after 233 years of Supreme Court ruling and actions, we finally have someone with her experience as a public defender, as an appellate court judge, as a Black woman at the table of justice, where the Constitution is being interpreted every day. And so to have someone who knows what it feels like to have a ceiling put on your dreams, who knows what it feels like to work hard, to do all the things that America tells you you need to do, and still not be able to break through. Now to have that experience at the table, helping the other justices understand that experience is just truly monumental. But I think most of all, family, it's the fact that we are being seen. Much of our experience in this country has been about our humanity and us struggling to have our humanity valued and seen as equal. And so to have this sister up front at the table is really confirmation and really an acknowledgement that we are seen, that we are being seen, and that we will be seen. So it's just glorious. It's just glorious.
Yes, we be seen and be heard. Say more about, we don't talk enough about how important her presence is going to be on the bench just for the sake of the deliberation with her colleagues. I mean, we learn through dialogue, presumably. I mean, some of those other justices may not be in as deep a dialogue as we want them to be. Thomas, looking at you. But speak more, Leah, if you will, to how you think that her presence is really going to culturally impact the entirety of the bench.
Well, when you consider the current composition of the bench and the history of the bench, where it's been 109 white men who have had a particular kind of upbringing, a particular kind of childhood, a particular kind of rearing, their experience, we know this as Black people, is limited. So to have someone like a Sonia Sotomayor, to have someone now like a Ketanji Brown Jackson who can say, no, let me tell you what it's like to be in a family where you have law enforcement officials and where you have people who have struggles with law enforcement, who has the experience of representing all kinds of people in the court. We've never had a public defender on the Supreme Court. My brother happens to have started his career as a public defender, and often I would go to court with him. And so I'm here to tell you, they don't choose their clients. What they choose is to follow the Constitution of the United States, which says that everyone is entitled to a defense. So they don't get to pick and choose. They're there to defend everyone's right to justice. And we don't have that on the Supreme Court, if you can believe that. There is no one on the court who has had the experience of representing clients that you may not agree with, but you stand for the law and you stand for justice. That kind of conversation that will happen, the part that we don't see, the part that happens when they're at lunch, when they're in chambers, when they're at conference, and bring their own experience to the interpretation of the law will be a game changer, I think, as she shares with them what it's like to have your guidance counselor tell you that you can't go to Harvard, that you should set your sights lower, and what that will mean for the interpretation of affirmative action rights, what it's like as a woman when you can't afford any child care, any reproductive care like me. The only place to get reproductive care, well woman care, when I was a young woman was Planned Parenthood. That's because they only charge $5. So what that means, what she talks about those kinds of experiences when you're considering what to do about reproductive rights, what it's like staying in line for 8 hours. None of these justices have those experiences, but she has and can speak to that. And they'll give her colleagues a different understanding of what the real life implications are for all us regular people out in the states who have to live with the consequence of their decisions.
Yes, that's such a great point that she is the only person who's going to be on this bench that has actually defended the people as a defense attorney, which is huge. I want you to back up a little bit and talk to us about how we got here. Now, the politics at play are that President Biden declared at some point that he would absolutely consider putting a Black woman on the bench if he had the opportunity to make a nomination. And then he did go ahead and stand firm in his statement. And he declared again, I'm going to nominate a Black woman. And then he did. That didn't just happen because President Joe Biden somehow woke up and said Black women are great. It happened clearly because of decades-long relationships and certainly the advocacy that you've been at the center of. So could you talk to us a little bit about how we got here to this point where, we got what we wanted for once?
Can you believe it? And I think that's one of the most meaningful things to me. As Black people, we have lived in a country that has made us promises and they often aren't kept. And that's on both sides of the aisle, quite frankly. And so to have a president of the United States who remembers the promise he made as a candidate, and when he had the opportunity, he kept his word and he made his promise real. That is of inestimable worth and value to me as a voter to understand that the president kept his promise. But listen, as Byron Rustin used to tell us, the story about Dr. King and President Johnson, and Johnson said, "Look, I agree with everything you're doing, but look, now you got to make me do it." It is the activists, it is the folks who've been marching, who've been petitioning, who've been gathering, who've been planning, plotting, strategizing to move our government forward. These are the people for whom this must be an especially sweet victory. We've been planning for this a long time. We've been creating the conditions that made this possible. Whether we're marching in the streets, whether we're petitioning inside of our government, some of us play the inside game and some of us play the outside game, but we're all committed to the same purpose. And that is the forward movement of our people. And so what you see now is the fruit of the many seeds that have been planted by our ancestors, by activists, by voters across the country who said, "I'm going to vote for you because I believe you will do this. Now I want you to do it." And so I'm going to knock on your door. I'm going to go see my congressman. I'm going to go to my senators to put the pieces in place to force action where action otherwise would not be taken. Remember Frederick Douglass? Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will.
We out here making these demands. And I got to say, Reverend Leodolce, thank you so much for all the work that you have done, literally for an entire generation of the movement and moving us forward in the political context, but certainly in just the love and the hope and the passion for the people that always resonates when I get to speak with you. So we appreciate having you here. I'm going to turn back to the audience and see if we have some other questions, reflections for Reverend Daughtry, or just to share right now on this day. Abba, who you got?
Yeah, we have Sharon from Powder Springs, Georgia. Sharon, go ahead with your question.
Good morning, and thank you. Definitely reflections. It was most awesome to be on the steps of the Supreme Court last week with the Black Women's Roundtable, the esteemed Melanie Campbell, Attorney Janice Mathis with NCNW, and Helen Butler, the People's Agenda of Georgia Black Women's Roundtable convener, and as on the board of the Village of Hope for the late Dr. Amelia Platts Boynton Robinson, the matriarch of the voting rights movement. It was a moment in time that will be forever seared, and to make it just more, we were captured there, and with the Equal Rights Amendment, right now waiting for the deadline to be removed, and of course firmly ratified by 38 states, and waiting to be the 28th Amendment, it is just so consoling that, yes, we are standing together. We are forging forward for this time for Judge Brown Jackson and making sure that our voices are heard. We are standing strong and standing together, unified, and that's what that day was for that. And it was captured in USA Today with myself and another young woman with Dr. Janetta Cole, the poster that NCNW had with her face and her quote, and myself sitting on the steps of the Supreme Court with the ERA Yes mask as well as the ERA Yes sign. It was, you know what? It was used as a thumbnail, and I believe everyone knows what a thumbnail means to the story, right? That it spoke loud without saying a word. We were just there, but it was heard and it was seen around the world. And then the story opens with the video of of course, convener, Black Women's Roundtable, Melanie Campbell, all of the speakers as well, and then pictures captured, the collage. It is most empowering. And that, I know, that this will be seared. We stand on the right side of history today as the Georgia NAACP Housing Committee Chair here. This is a time for us and for my mother, for my daughters, 5 daughters. This is, and I have 3 grandgirls, this is our time, as we know that she will oversee the Equal Rights Amendment in the U.S. Constitution as the 28th Amendment, which prohibits discrimination. And finally, females to have personhood. This is a day, and this week, and of course that day of confirmation that will live in infamy. I bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for those comments. We have with us our esteemed president of the NAACP, Derek Johnson, here on the line. Welcome, President Johnson. We would love to hear from you now. I know that you've been busy running around on the Hill and just in the middle of all of the celebration and the advocacy to get us here to this day. So welcome in, President Derek Johnson.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone who's tuned in as we anxiously await this process and the final outcome of confirmation. It is a confirmation not only for her appointment to serve on the highest court on the land, but it's also confirmation that our votes matter, confirmation that our activism matters, confirmation in see, as African Americans, we must always push the envelope to ensure our voices are heard through our vote, because the true currency in this country, in this democracy, and when we collectively deposit that currency as a community to assert what's in the best interest of our community, how we can best stand up the reality for the future for our children, how we should honor the legacy of our ancestors, how we must continue to push and fight for the current reality we want to see happen. It is confirmation that when we do that and we're focused on it and we look forward, we can achieve. So I want to thank everyone who's tuned in, who's been a part of this process, all of the beautiful Black women across the country who are standing up in their pride to say we must have a Black woman on the Supreme Court, because we know that the moral compass of this country is garnered through the Black woman. It has always been the case. And if we do this right for this appointment, which we have done right, to ensure that the president honored his commitment, we can continue to push towards a future we would like to see. So I want to thank you for hosting this and everyone who's tuning in. This is a historic moment. And I'm so proud of ABBA for organizing this as our Chief of Communications. I'm proud of our General Counsel, Jeanette Loire Wallace, who spoke earlier today on the steps of the Supreme Court. And as a part of this, we at NAACP, we recognize that but for Black women, we would not be a 113-year-old organization. And we are standing up in this moment with all of our communities to say that this is not only historic, this is not only necessary, but this is the reality of all the work up to this point. But we must continue to work and continue to push the envelope to achieve these type of accomplishments. So thank you.
Thank you, President Derek Johnson. Always great to hear from you and appreciate the work that you are doing to lead this organization. We're going to go ahead now and catch a little bit of the hearing and go ahead and tune in to what's happening right now in Senate Judiciary Committee. While we are gone, remember, if you are listening, you can press *3 to be able to weigh in, leave your comments and remarks or questions. And if you're just watching us on social, feel free to, in those boxes under your feed, put in any comments or questions that you have there. We will be right back with you. We're going to take a live feed now and hear what's happening.
Even though we knew should be a reliable liberal vote, because I and Senator Scott would have stepped up. Now we're facing a choice. sponsored by the most radical elements of the Democratic Party when it comes to how to be a judge. They have the most radical view of what a judge should do, and you were their choice. And you'll be asked, do you support expanding the Supreme Court? I hope you can give us an answer, because it shouldn't be hard. Either you do or you don't. Justice Ginsburg said no. She thought if you just changed the number of the court every time somebody new came in power, it would ruin the court in the eyes of the public and make it a joke over time. I agree with that. So I hope you can give us an answer to that question, because I think the court would be better off if the judges stood up for the court. If the judges told politicians, don't play this game with the court, because over time nobody wins. So congratulations. It's going to be a couple of interesting days, and we're off to a better start than we have been in the past. And the one thing I can promise you, you will not be vilified, you will not be attacked for your religious views, you will not be accused of something that you could not defend yourself against until it was too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Graham. Senator Feinstein.
Mr. Chairman, I want to begin by congratulating you, Judge Jackson, on this appointment. I've reviewed the records of a number of judicial nominees during my service on this committee. This is actually the 10th set of confirmation hearings for a Supreme Court nominee that I've participated in during my time in the Senate. And looking at your record, it's clear that you have the qualifications and the experience and the knowledge needed to serve on the Supreme Court. And as a woman, it makes me very proud of that. As we begin these hearings, we as senators take seriously our constitutional duty to advise the President on his appointment of a new Supreme Court justice. In the current term alone, the Supreme Court is addressing cases on issues that are foundational to who we are as a country. Let me just give you 3 examples. The court is considering a woman's fundamental right to control her own body and make her own health care decisions. It is considering the legal authority of the Environmental Protection Agency to fight climate change. And it's considering whether states have the power to enact common sense gun safety protections. As a former mayor, I saw how these problems affect people, everyday people, on everyday streets throughout my city and then subsequently the state of California. This is not your first time at this. In fact, it's your 4th time in front of this committee. The full Senate has already confirmed you on a bipartisan basis 3 times to serve as vice chair of the U.S. Sentencing Commission in 2010, as a federal district court judge 2013, and as a federal appellate court judge in 2021. And you have done us proud. Each of the 3 times, the Senate has considered your record, your experience, and your ability. Senators on both sides of the aisle have determined that you have the qualifications and the temperament it takes to uphold the values of our judicial branch. As I see it, those values are knowledge, even-handedness, impartiality, integrity, respect for the rule of law, and fundamental fairness to all. And your record actually shows that you exemplify these values. The Supreme Court is not a political institution. Rather, the court stands above politics and above partisanship, and we look to federal judges to be independent and unbiased. Judge Jackson, in reviewing your record, one thing in particular stands out to me, and that's your commitment to uphold justice under the law. This is one of the ultimate responsibilities of the Supreme Court, and your record suggests to me that you understand the weight of that responsibility. You've had several mentors early in your career who I understand were important in instilling these values in you as a young lawyer. One of those mentors were Justice Stephen Breyer, who you served as a law clerk and to whose seat on the Supreme Court you have now been nominated. What a treat for you to see that happen, and I know for him as well. Justice Breyer has been a thoughtful and even-handed judge throughout his career. So you have learned from the best, and you have brought those lessons and that dedication to equal justice with you throughout your career in the law. You have strong credentials. You're a graduate of both Harvard University and Harvard Law School, a former Supreme Court clerk, and you have served as a federal judge for 9 years, most recently on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District Circuit. These are impressive credentials, and they are also familiar to those of us who have reviewed numerous nominees to the court. But you also bring experiences that are less common, especially at the Supreme Court. The first is your service as a federal public defender earlier in your career. If you were confirmed, you would be the first ever federal public defender to sit on the court, and the first justice since Thurgood Marshall with significant experience representing low-income defendants and criminal cases. I believe this is very significant and important because as a former public defender, you understand the power of our constitutional rights, including the Sixth Amendment right to counsel and the Fifth Amendment right to due process. You also understand the effect of law and the law enforcement system on the most vulnerable. And I believe your 8 years of expertise as a trial judge on the DC District Court is very valuable. So, if confirmed, you would be one of only 2 former federal district court judges serving on the court, the other being Justice Sotomayor. I believe your perspective as a former trial judge will serve you well on the court. You've been responsible for implementing the precedent set by higher courts. And because of that, you understand the need for clarity in legal opinions, for achieving consensus wherever consensus is possible. And that has been your record. It's important to have justices with a broad set of views and experiences on the Supreme Court. And I believe your background and your experience will only serve to strengthen the Supreme Court. I trust that my colleagues on this committee will recognize that you are unquestionably qualified for this position. I wish you well. I look forward to learning more about you over the course of the coming days. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Feinstein. Senator Cornyn of Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Jackson, let me join my colleagues in extending a warm welcome to you and your family. Congratulations on your nomination. I enjoyed sitting down with you recently and talking about your experience as both a lawyer and a judge and how that's molded your views of our judicial system. In the coming days, I hope we can have a candid conversation about your record and your judicial philosophy. As I told you the other day, these proceedings will be thorough but civil. As a member of this committee, I've had the opportunity to provide advice and consent on 7 previous Supreme Court nominations. This is number 8. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to the way the Senate conducts these proceedings, and so have the American people. One of the best things I think comes from this process is I think this is a teachable moment that will remind all of us about the wisdom of the founders who wrote a constitution that made sure that our rights would be fixed and certain, so that these rights, whether they are the right to keep and bear arms or the right to practice one's faith, would be preserved from generation to generation. As you know, the founders established 3 separate branches of our government, a system of checks and balances, if you will. This was done for the purpose of preserving individual freedom and avoiding tyranny, and ensure that our government was ultimately accountable to the people, from whom all political power derives. Article 3, as you know, vests the Supreme Court and inferior courts with the judicial power. But the framers were very clear. The courts are not vested with a policy-making authority. According to our Constitution, courts hear cases and controversies and decide them. Nothing more, nothing less. That's an important distinction to remember in the days that lie ahead. Indeed, the framers envisioned that the courts would have a modest but very important role in our 3 branches of government. You'll recall Federalist 78, where Alexander Hamilton said the courts would have no influence over either the sword or the purse, and that it may truly be said to have neither force nor will, but merely judgment. Part of that judgment requires a judge to go where the law commands, whether or not you personally approve or not. And it starts with deciding cases as presented and not cherry-picking the facts or the law and starting with the decision and then justifying it by the way, by cherry-picked facts and provisions of the law. While the framers provided that the president would nominate judges, the framers also set up a framework that allowed judges, once you are confirmed, to exercise independent judgment, free from elections and politics. And so these Supreme Court confirmation hearings are really the only chance we have as representatives of the people to vet somebody who will serve the remainder of their life. Unfortunately, there are some driven by their ideology that want the Supreme Court to do more than what I've just described. These are some of the same people who tried to bully Justice Breyer into an early retirement. These activists demand that the court make policy and deliver results they can't achieve through the deliberation, compromise, and rough and tumble of legislative politics. And when the court does not deliver the results they want, they attack its institutional integrity and legitimacy. In recent years, these radical views have made their way into the mainstream. On the campaign trail, President Biden refused to disavow court packing.
We've been watching a live feed from the Senate Judiciary Committee, where we're focused here on the exciting opportunity for us to have a Black woman on the Supreme Court. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is going to be scrutinized all week by these senators who are making flowery opening statements today. We just heard Senator Lindsey Graham. We also heard from Senator Dianne Feinstein. Everyone is essentially giving us a bit of a preview into what their line of questioning will be about. So that's what really today is. It's an opportunity for the senators to set the tone for how their end of this hearing is going to go. So listen in for some of the things that they're remarking about in their opening remarks, because surely they'll be turned into questions directed at her later on. I want to continue our conversation here as we have our SCOTUS watch party with some of our other guests that we have on the line. We have Sarah Glover here, who is a longtime media personality and journalist, a former past president of the National Association of Black Journalists, who is also the current managing editor at Minneapolis Public Radio. Sarah, do we have you here? Welcome to our conversation today. I wanna bring you in. Just give me a shout if you can hear me. There you are. I see you. Welcome. Welcome. I've been excited to have you log in here today because you are a journalist. You watch the way that we are covered, and we can be as all-encompassing as makes sense for this conversation. I'm curious to get your take on how the media has been covering this nomination and what you're looking for. Oh, wait, you might be on mute. Do we have you muted? Check your. There you
Okay,
go.
how's that? There we go.
Welcome.
So good to see you. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you for having me. The Supreme Court nomination process is a process that should be transparent and in the public realm. So when we think about or talk about the media coverage, it's wonderful to see so many outlets airing the actual nomination bumper to bumper live. Because what that does is it makes that process transparent and the public can hear the questions, can hear the debate live and direct. And there should be hearty debate, right? In following the Constitution, questions of every regard should be considered and asked. So it's interesting that obviously the cable networks and most outlets are running the entire hearing process, but even local and state and regional organizations like mine, Minnesota Public Radio and NPR News, live on air, so you can hear that entire broadcast. And it's also interesting to look at how local outlets are covering this nomination process. Judge Jackson grew up in Miami, and it's noteworthy to look at, for example, the Miami Herald and their coverage of this nomination and its process. And certainly, I think that organization sees her as the hometown candidate. So there's lots of individuals and articles to learn more about her. One headline said, "Who's Florida's Ketanji Brown Jackson? Biden's Supreme Court pick." And they really go very deep into all about her and her background. She's a Palmetto High grad and more. And so really the media coverage is the role of media to bring all of this information to not just audiences, but to citizens from the standpoint of our public service mission as journalists, and to be transparent and tell both sides. And I think you're seeing that play out, particularly as many organizations airing this process live.
I appreciate you talking about the transparency here because I've alluded to a couple of times the fact that some of the Republican senators are going to try to defame her and poke holes in her record and misrepresent, frankly, her career. We saw that Senator Josh Hawley started off on that train over the last week or so, essentially trying to paint her as someone who is sympathetic to pedophiles and who is not tough on crime. And to your point about media outlets and the due diligence and what they're required, what is required of them as journalistic institutions, is that the Washington Post published a full article dispelling all the myths, essentially, that the senator and the RNC have tried to put out about her, and setting the record straight and kind of, going through and fact checking, which is meaningful. I wonder, as you watch all of this play out, I personally love the personal side of the politics and the stories of who she is as a human. I love hearing from her college dorm mates or her friends from college. What is your opinion so far about how fair and balanced and fact-checked the coverage has been, and what do you see an opportunity for there to be more of as the media is covering this?
The whole concept of fact checking has ramped up over the past handful of years, and misinformation is the thing that journalism organizations have to grapple with every day. And so having teams of journalists, the Associated Press does a really good job with fact checking. The teams of journalists not only watching, but immediately checking information that's shared during the hearings and other live news events. And certainly most major organizations have teams as well to do the same. So I think like that initial concept of fact check has to be taken up a notch. And it's really important to hold all individuals and organizations to account. So if someone says something, it should be checked out instantaneously. Earlier in the last hour, Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham from South Carolina, he said outwardly he's going to ask the tough questions, quote unquote. So again, we shall be tuning into some healthy debate without a doubt. And when that debate occurs, it's important that organizations utilize the elements of the web and, publish, articles and reports that go a little deeper than the surface of Judge Brown is being nominated, and that it's a historic nomination. And interestingly, to that point, that she is a Black woman, and certainly this nomination is historic, but it's also historic for what Senator Fines earlier identified. She's a federal judge of 9 years. She was also a trial judge in the DC District Court. It's important that journalists go deeper and not just focus on the surface qualities and characteristics, and really identify for the public where her qualifications land and how they rise or not. And so we actually, as journalists, have we must do our due diligence as our our kind of mandate, if you will, as members of the Fourth Estate, to really provide that public service and not kind of get into the opinion and bipartisan arguments back and forth, but report on them, flesh out things that are said, and identify where things are in fact true and or in fact opinion, if you will. And so it keeps you on your toes, that's for certain.
Yeah, I always find there to just, I get frustrated, frankly, with the media bias, I'll call it, and I'm a member of the media, so I'll call us all out, that when we're talking about women, when we're covering women generally, there tends to be a very monolithic approach to what gets reported, be it, we're commenting on things that are frivolous, frankly, like the way that she presents, the things that she's wearing. When we're covering Black people generally, it also often gets into a very narrow scope and frame of where are they on civil rights, right? Like that's kind of the beginning and the end of the conversation. I'm curious, as you've been watching the coverage so far, do you think it's fair? And do you think it's holistic?
I really appreciate that question, because I'm interested in her qualifications. I'm interested in learning and being able to, amplify a report to the public. Why was she the pick, and why is she qualified? And so that's what I'm listening. That's where my ear is listening. I'm less interested in, drilling down on what people say are soft skills, right? How people communicate, some of those general characteristics about personality. Yes, what was her voting record or her judge record on XYZ issue? And that's really where we should put that emphasis. And so I think news organizations have some tough decisions to make. Every day, editors get together in news meetings at every organization and make a decision on what qualifies as coverage for the day and what will be the focus of that coverage. And so, considering the context that race is front and center simply because of her characteristics, we as journalists have an obligation to really think about how we're framing those conversations, and in fact making certain and sure that that is not overemphasized. Really looking at and peeling back to how and why is this woman qualified, and what is her record, and then really focusing in on the hearings themselves. What's being said? Is it in fact true or not true? And then how can media organizations provide more context? So if you're a local organization or someone who knew her, in law school or at another point in life, what is the context or the nuance that would be of interest to citizens to learn more about this candidate? And I think that is the challenge of news organizations every day. But in a historic moment like this, it's even more pressing that we take that charge seriously.
Yeah. For the sake of the credibility too, just of the craft of journalism, like you said, there's so much misinformation and disinformation. And let's be real, when you have these big flash in the pan moments, if you will, with all eyes of the nation kind of focused on this particular political conversation, it gets to be a bit theatrical as well. And the media plays into that, right? I have an opinion about the last president and how there was a lot of theatrics there in the coverage that wasn't necessarily about the day-to-day of what was happening and the fact checking, so much as it's fun to watch. It's fun to see her. It's fun to be able to have a conversation about the first. And I wonder, for you, is there anything that you could advise those of us who are trying to sort through what's important and what's not. I mean, certainly qualifications are a thing, but as we are trying to understand who she might be for the rest of her life on the bench, what should we be looking for, and the questions that we should be asking ourselves as we're reading what's being reported out?
Really great question, Aisha. I think it's so critical as a citizen of the world and as an American to read multiple news sources. I think you would be doing yourself a disservice if you only read or listened to one news source. So certainly national news and or newspapers, cable networks are great to consume that perspective, but also really pay attention to the local news efforting right in your purview, whether it's in your individual town or city, region, or state, because the perspective I think that you probably are hungry for will come through in that local and regional efforting. At Minnesota Public Radio, we're putting a lot of effort on authentic storytelling, inclusive storytelling, and bringing context, going deeper and providing distinct coverage. And I think you will see that type of perspective across the country in different locales. But certainly also something to pay attention to is, opinion-based, TV news programs, right? Know that some of the guests on are providing perspective and opinion. And I think that is wonderful context, right? As you look at different news organizations to consume their reporting and their distribution of news and information, but also consider that, sometimes opinion-based journalism is just that you also need to go and read a general news story. And again, local, regional, state organizations provide that perspective. As a managing editor of a news team in Minnesota, certainly we run Associated Press articles that are, well researched and reported, and certainly our own original reporting is found and published across the state in some of our news partner organizations. So to get that perspective is critical. It's not to say don't consume one news organization only. It's to suggest or say that it's good to have a mix or a barrage of perspectives on the reporting. And certainly I think, you can draw your own conclusions. You can find perspective that you may not have seen. The national TV program, you'll see that perspective in a local outlet. And I can tell you, as someone who works in local news, we're working really hard to serve our citizens locally, regionally, and across the state of Minnesota. And I know that's the case in other local news outlets. We feel very proud to do journalism today because we can bring that context and nuance.
Sarah Glover, thank you so much for all of your perspective. Certainly a shiro in the journalism world and Black media and beyond. I know you were also a Harvard Fellow recently as well. So thank you so much for sharing your perspective and reminding us all that we need to diversify what we read and what we consume so that we're getting balanced perspectives. Appreciate your time. I have with us, thank you. I also have with us now Stephanie Young that I want to bring into this conversation, an organizer, coalition builder, and now the head of Michelle Obama's organization, When We All Vote. Stephanie, are you with us? Do we have you? There you are. Hey, girl. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hi. Hey.
Welcome.
So good to see you.
You too. Thank you for joining us here for this SCOTUS watch party with the NAACP. I want to bring you in to kind of get a couple of perspectives. One, I would love your reflections. I think that there's a generational conversation that we haven't had yet around how, the under 40 crowd might be receiving this nomination, and certainly, how women generally are receiving it. So give us your reflections and thoughts about it.
Yeah, look, I mean, for the 115 people who've served on the Supreme Court, only 3 of them have been people of color, only 5 have actually been women, none of them Black women. And if the highest court in our land does not accurately reflect the diversity of this country, how can we have equitable justice? So I can say from my personal standpoint, and I know I speak for many other young Black women, this is long overdue. We're just so excited that this point has come and that we're at this time in our country. But really, it's long overdue. We are righting a wrong so that our Supreme Court actually reflects who we are. Obviously, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is exceptionally qualified. And we have her back and are ready to do the work to ensure that she receives confirmation as swiftly and quickly as possible. And I think it's really important to note that since 1984, women have turned out to vote at higher rates than men. And Black women are one of the largest voting blocs in this country. So it only makes sense to ensure that our court reflects that diversity so that we are able to really have a true democracy when it comes to the issues that impact all of us and people who reflect all of the ways in which we think and feel and live within this country.
Yeah, so you are a longtime campaign operative and strategist, and certainly now working on making sure that people are invigorated to get out and to vote. Naturally, Black women are, have always shown up at high rates, but when it hits the midterms, like we're approaching this November, we're not always as energized and motivated as we might be around a presidential. So I wonder, what are you hearing and seeing as you're doing your work on the ground? Is this nomination of Judge Brown Jackson one that is a galvanizing opportunity to get people enthusiastic about voting in November?
I think so. Her nomination really does come at a pivotal time for the future of our democracy. We've seen the voting rights under attack all over this country with over 500 voter suppression bills that are impacting people that look like us. We do know one of the motivating factors for Black women to vote, especially, is voting rights. And they want to see something done on that issue. So I do think that her nomination I think, is a motivating factor in understanding that there will be someone on the bench who believes in democracy and believes in protecting the right to vote, and will do what it takes to make that happen. And then also that we are making progress, incremental progress. I know racial issues and racial justice is another really, really big issue and a motivating factor for women in voting. And when we see that we'll have some representation within the Supreme Court, I do believe that will be a factor. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to organizing. It's going to come down to ensuring that people are not only registered, but they've checked their status and that they're ready and have the tools and resources that they need to actually get out there and vote. So this will be a good thing, I believe, to inspire some who may have stayed home, but it won't be the only factor.
Give us the dish on what you are up to. I know we haven't talked much about the Obamas generally, or Michelle Obama's voice in this process, but certainly their work has carried on. And you now run an organization that really is about engaging the electorate, keeping people, involved in the democratic process. Tell us what you're up to and what you're working on this cycle, and how this nomination certainly can be a jumping off point for the rest of us to get involved.
Well, we're really excited about this year. It's going to be a hard year, and I think that we should all just understand that and be prepared. When We All Vote was launched in 2018 by Mrs. Obama to change the culture around voting and to help to increase participation in every election by closing the race and the voting age gap. So we are very, very focused on ensuring that we're getting young people excited, but that we're also engaging people of color at large, especially Black people. So this year we have kicked off a new HBCU campaign called Vote Loud. We're very excited about that new initiative where we're building voting squads on HBCU campuses all across this country, where young people can sign up to build their own squad, and we will grant them opportunities to really have that squad kind of do all the organizing, not just on campus, but outside in the community in which the campus is on. In addition to that, we just did a pledge with the NAACP and many, many other organizations after we saw that Congress was not going to act to protect our voting rights. So within that pledge, we have all pledged to register at least 1 million voters, to recruit at least 100,000 volunteers, to also get at least 100,000 people to call their senators in support of voting rights. So that pledge will carry us on from now until the end of this year, and we'll continue to beat that drum to ensure that we have federal legislation that protects voters of color all over this country. In addition to that, there's a place for anyone. If you're watching this broadcast right now, just know that we have an opportunity for you to join When We All Vote and the work that we're doing to organize your community by becoming a voting squad captain. And many of our voting squad captains are Black women, which we're very, very happy about and excited about. And through that program, there's opportunities to become chapter leaders within your city or your state to ensure that you are organizing the people within your community, be that at church, be that at work, be that just your neighbors. It doesn't matter. It could just be your family. We know that peer-to-peer organizing works, and that means that you are the best influencer with the people that love you and care about you and look up to you. So we need you out there talking about voting as much as possible. So we'd love folks to head over to whenweallvote.org, sign up for our email so you know what's going on, sign up to volunteer with us. And if you are an HBCU student, or an educator, please make sure you sign up for our new HBCU Vote Loud campaign.
Stephanie, I appreciate the way that you talk about how we impact and influence our peers, and then certainly, people around us who watch us, who look up to us, who just are able to be engaged with us in conversations, be it at work or otherwise. I'm curious. We often preach to the choir, if you will. We are having a celebration as Black women about a Black woman, and like our sister friend's about to do the thing, right? Like we are here having this kind of awesome inner circle moment. When I think about Mrs. Obama as who is like always one of the most popular people in the world, meaning that she influences people, Black women, surely, but beyond. I wonder how this moment in time, this exciting, galvanizing opportunity around the first Black woman to be nominated for the Supreme Court, how can we take that energy back and actually influence other people who aren't necessarily the choir of Black women, who we already are here and supportive, but just around the values of inclusion and justice and first and righting wrongs. Like you said, this is a moment that we're trying to have a reparative moment here as well. How can we use this time to galvanize? Maybe it's white soccer moms, maybe it's people in the middle of the road here who we also need to vote and come down on the right side of voting rights and other social issues. What do you say to how we can permeate beyond the kind of recycled choir that we have with one another?
Yeah, I do think that is very important. I think the key to remember is that it's never one conversation that moves the needle. It is many conversations, and we have to be consistently talking to the people in our lives that we're attached to in any way, shape, or form. So what I mean by that is that it takes at least 7 touches to make sure that someone's registered to vote, meaning you ask them about it, you got to ask them again, you have to start the process with them, you got to remind them to finish it. I mean, it is a process, and I think that sometimes we want to have really quick conversations about these hard issues, but I do think that this is a moment to talk about and to reflect on how far we have come as a nation, how long it's actually taken. I mentioned it's been 115 Supreme Court years, right? So like we're talking about it's been a really long time, and we're just getting this done. And I think that this moment is really underscores that we all can play a role in ensuring that we're the nation that we say that we want to be. And it starts with democracy, right? It starts with the voting work, because no issues you care about, from education to criminal justice reform, nothing can be done if we don't start at the ballot box. That's just the beginning of civic engagement. That's just the beginning of the process, right? Because once we elect people into offices that are supposed to be, looking out for us, we have to hold them accountable. So I think this moment should at least start a conversation about, look, hey, this is a great thing that's happening right now, but this isn't the only thing that we should be focusing on. And we should be reflective as to look and see how long it's actually taken to get here, and what are the other spaces and places that we need to work on together. And I think that it's democracy work that we have to start with first, because I do believe that, unfortunately, we are missing the fact that our democracy is under great attack. And I think that if we look away, especially in November, and if 2024 is going to be another big moment where I'm telling you, I think folks are really prepared to make it potentially a mess. And we have to stand up right now to ensure that not only are we ready, registered, all of those things to vote, and we're getting out there to vote, but we're taking everybody with us, and we're not losing sight of those critical roles, like the secretaries of state who control elections in states all across this country that are up for re-election in at least nearly almost 30 states, who are prepared to not certify the 2024 election. So we've got a lot ahead of us. So I believe that this is a galvanizing moment for us to have diverse conversations about the state of our democracy holistically, while celebrating where we are, but recognizing that we have a far way to go and that we all need to be in this fight together.
Stephanie Young, When We All Vote, thank you so much for joining us and for all of your reflections. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring in Nicole Austin Hillary, who is on the line with us, the brand new president and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. Congratulations and welcome, Nicole. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to the NAACP for hosting this conversation.
It's good to have you here. So look, you are now with the CBC Foundation. I know there's a whole lot of historical context here, certainly with the caucus. Just start off by giving us your reflections on how this moment is going to play out in Washington and beyond.
This moment is going to change the trajectory for all of us. And when I say all of us, I don't just mean Black people. I mean people of all ethnicities, races, religions, sexual orientations, and not just here in the United States, but globally. Because the rest of the world looks to the United States for how we should shape a democracy, to how we ensure diversity, and how we ensure equity. And having an African-American jurist on the Supreme Court is going to send a resounding message to the world that this is a country where opportunities are made, where equity is taken seriously, and where leveling the playing field is something that we are serious about. And just like we saw the rest of the world follow suit in the United States when we rose up to speak up and speak out after the death of George Floyd and after the deaths of so many other African Americans in this country, the world looked to us for their playbook, and it sent a ripple effect. And that's what we're going to see. So this is bigger than just us. This is bigger than just this country. This is a global shift for the world.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. And the representation, we can't even talk enough about how important it is that we have the representation and it mattering. And certainly, the work of the Congressional Black Caucus is constantly trying to amplify how important it is that we actually have leaders who are at the helms of government and, the various branches that are doing the work from a multiplicity of lived experiences. I'm curious if you can speak to what you expect to come to pass from a policy front. Are you imagining now that the advocacy strategies might ramp up or change around some of the issues that are important to Black folks particularly, but now that there will be a justice who might be willing to hear some of these cases, that there'll be a different approach to getting things in front of the Supreme Court because she's there?
Well, look, the numbers speak for themselves. Even though Judge Ketanji Brown is going to add an important critical voice to the court, it is still going to be a court where it is majority conservative. But here's the thing that is so important to recognize, that even when the court is swayed in one way versus another, having jurists that have different experiences, that can bring a new set of intellectual heft and ideas and ways of thinking to the court can change things. We have to look at history. When Brown versus Board of Education was before the court, if you had asked prognosticators to tell us whether that decision would come out positive, for the individuals who were seeking to desegregate the schools in the United States, they probably would have told us no. They probably would have said, don't put your money on that. But having jurists on the court who were open to thinking differently, who were open to hearing both sides, who were open to change, made a difference. When Chief Justice Warren was appointed to the Supreme Court, he was not seen as a judge who was liberal or progressive. No one would have assumed that he would have been the Chief Justice who would have made a difference and who would have said, yes, separate but equal is not right in this country, and we need to make a change. So when you have voices like Judge Ketanji Brown, who are going to be on the court, who have lived different experiences, who have represented people who have walked a different path, and who understand that those differences are really what make up the potpourri, if you will, of what makes the United States, I think she will have a critical role to play in being able to influence the other members of the court and help them to see things that perhaps they may not have seen before because of their different lifestyles, because of their different experiences. That's what diversity is all about. When we talk about diversity in all realms, the courts, the schools, in housing, in our legislators, that's what diversity brings. It allows us to think differently and to have exposure to experiences that perhaps we would have never had before. And it creates empathy and openness. That's what she's going to change by being on this court.
Indeed. Real quick, I have one more minute with you, but you just brought to mind for me the value of the dissenting opinion, which, as you're saying, the numbers are what they are right now. There's still going to be a majority on the court that probably won't move on voting rights, but what is crafted, the language that's written in those dissenting opinions, certainly in and of itself can go on to be a precedent. So can you speak a little bit to that and how we as organizers, activists, journalists that are covering, and just people who are trying to continue to drive social justice might want to pay attention to some of the things that come down and are said and written, even if they aren't the majority opinion?
The thing that is so what I call beautiful about the law, and I'm a lawyer, so I'm a little biased, but the thing that is so beautiful about it is that it creates a record. And so when you talk about dissenting opinions, those opinions create a record. And we know that the fight for equal rights, whether we're talking about voting rights, housing rights, equal education, health equity, it is a slow and steady race. And so building a record under the law is critically important. So those dissenting opinions, while they may not rule the day in a particular case at the moment, those dissenting opinions are creating a record upon which we can build, upon which we can reference and utilize to help tell the story and create a line of cases and a line of jurisprudence that can be relied upon later. That's how our justice system works. And we know that there have been jurists like the late, great Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who have had hallmark dissenting opinions that have done just that, and that have been not only a record that could be built upon by lawyers in other cases, but it also serves to change public opinion. We have to remember the court is not just about deciding cases, it is about helping to set how we think and how the public views issues. So those dissenting opinions have the possibility of changing how we think as a country, how people treat one another, how people then utilize the ways, options that are available to them in their own communities to build bridges, to close gaps, and to create more equitable opportunities. So again, her role as a jurist will be far reaching and will be so impactful in myriad ways. And really what we want is to change people's hearts, minds, and thinking. That's what's going to change this country, and that's what's going to change the world when it comes to equity around race and justice.
Nicole Alston Hillary, new president and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. Thank you so much for all of your insights. Appreciate you joining us today. I am going to bring in now my friend Keith Boykin, who we have here on the line, who is an author, a journalist. You see him on CNN, and also a graduate of Harvard Law School. Welcome, Keith. Thank you so much for being here with us. I want to get your reactions. I know you have a whole lot to say. How are you feeling about today?
Well, I feel good. I feel encouraged today, Aisha. Thank you for having me on. Thank you to the NAACP as well for sponsoring this watch party. It's an important day. As we all know, we've had 115 Supreme Court justices. 108 of them have been white men. That's 94%. in a country where white men make up about 29 to 30% of the population. White men have been grossly overrepresented. And so here we now have an opportunity to have the first Black woman on the United States Supreme Court. She comes to the court eminently qualified, as a lot of the different speakers today have already pointed out, and as people have pointed out on the Senate Judiciary Committee during the hearings today. She's the only member, she would be the only member of the United States Supreme Court who not only has graduated from a top law school, but also clerked for a Supreme Court justice, worked on a district court, and worked on a federal appeals court. No other member of the Supreme Court has those qualifications. Combined with that, she has experience as a public defender and work on the Sentencing Commission. She brings into it real life experience and lived experience, not only as a Black woman, but as a person who's kept in touch with people from various backgrounds that we don't have on the Supreme Court to a great extent. And that's really important to have. It's also important to note that there's been a lot of critiques about this nomination from Republican senators today that have really sort of skated over the issue of her qualifications and instead focused on past confirmation battles. And we're focused on the present and on the future. And for those people who don't understand the significance of this, I'll just go back to what Nicole just said a moment ago. The Supreme Court justice not only serves for the lifetime of the term of the president, but also they have a lifetime appointment. So this person, even though Ketanji Brown Jackson will be on the Supreme Court in the minority capacity, the 6-3 Supreme Court, she will potentially be on there for decades, having an impact on rulings that will affect African Americans, people of color, and other disenfranchised and disempowered groups for many, many years to come. And that cannot be understated or underestimated.
Keith, I want you to speak to something that we actually haven't covered in our watch party today. You did mention that she was the head of the Sentencing Commission, which is certainly going to be a line of attack for Republicans who are going to question whether she's soft on crime. But really, the role that she played there was about creating equity and justice in the way that people are sentenced. And we know that there's a huge sentencing disparity with Black folks. So could you speak to that and the importance of the work that she did there and how you think she might present it in these hearings?
Well, I think it's important to remember that the Sentencing Commission is a bipartisan commission. And she's not the only person in the court who would have that experience. She'd be the second on the current court, but the first, I guess, in the new court after Justice Breyer leaves. But she brings this experience in a country where people of both parties, Republicans and Democrats, have come to the recognition that the sentencing disparities do have racial impacts, that there is a disparate impact on African Americans and Latinos and people of color in general. And there has been a bipartisan effort to try to correct that. We haven't seen the legislative accomplishment to go along with that effort at this point, but there's been a slow movement in that direction in both parties. So I don't think this should be a politically difficult position or a challenging position. This is something that most Americans support. They don't believe in the crack cocaine disparities. They don't believe in the sentencing disparities we see from one issue to another, or from one case to another, or one state to another, or from one race to another. And Americans want to see some sort of racial equity and justice in our sentencing, especially at a time when there has been an era of mass incarceration that we were trying to sort of reconfigure and compensate for those errors of the past. So having said that, I honestly think that issue, even though it will be used against her by some, I think what we'll find is that a majority of her decisions on the Sentencing Commission, her recommendations, have come from bipartisan support. So it won't be an issue that can be used effectively against her.
I would hope not, but you can't take as we're seeing in these opening remarks that we've been watching. They're gonna have something to say. You know, they already got something. I keep picking on Josh Cawley, who is just a hot mess out there attacking her already. I want to ask you. You went to Harvard Law School. I've read some of the pieces where they've talked to her former classmates. It is no easy feat to get into Harvard as an undergraduate and then go on to Harvard Law School. We keep talking a lot about the credentials, and surely she's had a very storied career as is. But I would love for you to speak a little bit to just the stick-to-itiveness and the intellect and the drive of someone who has gone through the rigors of these types of elite institutions and how that really positions her for the task ahead.
Well, you know, it's important to understand that a lot of people don't necessarily think that graduating from these so-called elite institutions, as I have and as she did, should necessarily be qualifications in order to be on the Supreme Court. But since that has been the standard that people have been using, it's important that she be judged fairly in that respect. And so she has the same qualifications as every other member of the U.S. Supreme Court, in that she did graduate from a top law school. She graduated from Harvard Law School. Not only that, but as I said before, she's also clerked for a Supreme Court justice. She's also served as a district court judge and the appellate court judge. Not only that, she comes to the Supreme Court with a very well-qualified rating from the American Bar Association, which Clarence Thomas, for example, does not have on the Supreme Court. She also has this experience that I think that people aren't paying attention to because they're focusing on distracting issues. So, for example, we had a few weeks ago, I think it was Tucker Carlson, who made the comment questioning about her LSAT scores. And I can tell you this as a lawyer and someone who knows lawyers, I've never in my entire life ever been asked about my LSAT score by anyone who's ever asked me job or tried to employ me for a job. It's not relevant. It's almost like going to a job for someone who isn't a lawyer and being asked in an interview about your SAT scores. What's important is her record, a record of achievement, not only in law school, but after law school, as a judge, as a jurist, as a thinker, as an intellect, as a member of the Sentencing Commission, as a public defender, as a lawyer of great rapport. So I think she has a strong record to stand on. I don't think anybody would be able to touch that, no matter how hard they will try. And they will.
Keith Boykin, thank you so much for joining us with our NAACP SCOTUS Watch Party here. Appreciate all of your insights, as always. We are coming to the end right now of our coverage of the opening hearings here for the nomination of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. I want to invite you all to continue following the NAACP on social media. There'll be IG Lives just to keep track of everything that's going on. If you want to watch full coverage from just nonstop full coverage of these Senate hearings, you can do so at the Black News Channel. We'll be covering it the next 4 days, all day, every day. Again, keep putting your comments in at the NAACP social sites and stay engaged in the conversation. I'm going to turn it back to Abba. It's been fun hanging out with you all and celebrating this morning. Lots more to watch. Abba, turning it back to you.
Thank you so much, Aisha, and thank you to all of our panelists for joining us for this watch party today. It has been exciting to learn about the process and about Judge Jackson's qualifications and her about just her journey to this space. It was also great to hear about the excitement that she has generated. And so this has been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful opportunity to gather community. We've had over 16,000 people who joined us on the phone and many more on social media. And so let's continue. Let's continue with our comments, and let's continue to ensure that all of the senators support Judge Jackson. We're going to urge you over the next coming days to contact your senator and let them know that you support Judge Jackson. We have some social media graphics that you'll find on the NAACP website and on social media. We want you to post those to your social media as well, and let the whole world know that we support this woman and we support Judge Jackson. We urge all of the senators to support her as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great, great, great day.